really interesting fight at light heavyweight, and it's great that we always get more and more. It seems like we get more and more fighters joining the division. We have a really interesting case in Roman Dolidze coming at us from Georgia, a guy who trains with some really good boxers and kickboxers in his camp, taking on Khadis Ibragimov. And people might be familiar with Ibragimov. I know he's 0-2 so far in the UFC. Lost to Da Un Jung, standing guillotine loss. Wasn't a good one. He was undefeated coming into the UFC, former M1 global champ. Then in his next fight, took on Ed Herman, and he lost that fight handily. I know the judges had it, two of them 30-27 and one 29-28 for Herman, but it was a resounding Ed Herman win. So Khadis Ibragimov, he was getting the finishes on the regional scene. He was getting them relatively quick. He could do it in a lot of different ways. Really long fighter for the division. Roman Dolidze, if you go back and watch his fights, or if you even look at his total body of work, he was an ADCC regional champ in 2016. He was a FILA World Grappling Champ in 2013. He sets up his grappling with his hands, but in his last two fights, he won them by knockout. And if you look at the second to last, he just marches forward, and he might not throw combinations, but he'll throw single shots that at least kind of wake his opponents up to his power. The one thing I don't like is he's a grappler that's really happy with his hands, and I get it. He trains with world-class kickboxers in Ukraine. But again, the trouble is he doesn't really throw a lot of leg kicks. He marches forward, and oh, by the way, he hasn't fought in quite some time. And that kind of scares me in this one. And we'll talk about the odds a little bit later on. His last fight in 2018, he was scheduled in early 2019 to take on Ged Shimrad and Tigulov, but he was out due to injury. That's a little bit of foreshadowing there. Then he was supposed to take on Vinicius Moreira, but he was out due to injury. And then in August of 2019, so I get my facts straight, it was revealed that he gets suspended by USADA. Now, yeah, banned substances, but then he admitted to USADA that he took banned substances before he entered the testing pool, showed them everything that he took. That was what he tested positive for.
Gotta appreciate the honesty.
Spent roughly a year, if you count, probably around the Antigulov time that he pulled out due to injury. He was reinstated for March of this year. Now he has a fight against Ibragimov. So we go back to his last fight, which I think was a really interesting one. He took on Michael Pasternak, no relation to David Pasternak of the Boston Bruins. But it was a fight where he did the same thing. Happy with his hands. March forward. Pressure. And then at one point threw a low kick into a spinning back fist and knocked him out cold. So he has good hands. This is the one troubling thing if you're a big Roman Dolidze fan. He does that Yuri Prochazka thing where he throws a power shot and then he wants to get into a firefight, so he starts, egging his opponent on. I wouldn't do that against Khadis Ibragimov, even though he hasn't been great in the UFC. You can't do it against these powerful young guys, especially a guy that's 25, that's been a former champion in another organization. You're coming in off a long layoff. You might say, well, Craig, he was off due to a fairly lengthy USADA suspension. He probably looks like a bag of milk. He does not, if you go on the Instagrams, still looks pretty good. So that's not something that concerns me. I think the time off probably did actually help him in certain respects. And the other thing that you have to consider, he's 6-0, and he has that grappling acumen. I'm not going to say he's like Rodolfo Vieira.
I hope.
But there's not a lot of miles on him in terms of overall MMA fights. I think that helps him in this one. What do you have for me?
Khadis Ibragimov is one of the more disappointing guys to come over from M1, at least I think. I mean,
at least Roman Bogatov gave a good account of himself by kneeing Leonardo Santos and kicking him in the nuts twice and then illegally kneeing him to the head.
Very good point. Ibragimov, though, in that Ed Herman fight, was just so disappointing. And we see this with a lot of guys. They're great for a round, and then, I don't know if they just don't own a treadmill, and that power bar gets sapped so quick. And at 205, it's not like you have to be this cardio beast to really make it high in the division, but you have to at least, be able to fight 3 rounds. That's all I ask for. Fight 3 hard rounds. And Ibragimov has yet to show that in his UFC career. He'll get off to these great starts. He's got good striking. He has good wrestling, but we don't see it as much as in going for takedowns. It's more hold your guy up against the cage, kind of wear on them that way. And he kind of has to do that, to be honest, because at this point in his career, or not at this point in his career, he is quite young, but at this stage in his career, I should say, he doesn't have the cardio. And it's something that you would think his coaches would want him to work on. That would be a real big focal point of this camp. Hopefully it was. But when you have that as your weakness, your skills could all be 10 out of 10, but if your cardio is only a 2 out of 10, the second you reach the limits of your cardio, all those skills don't really matter because you don't have the explosiveness, you don't have the cardio behind it to really capitalize on all those skills. So although Ibragimov's probably better in more categories, it's just really hard to pick a guy who gets tired after about 3 minutes.
It's a really tough one if you're trying to predict it. I mean,
It is.
let's call a spade a spade. You got a guy that's been off for a long time that beat decent competition on the regional scene in ways that you probably didn't think that he would. He's a little bit happy with his hands, but he does well when he lands. And you've got Khadis Ibragimov, who he has a background in combat sambo, so he's got that going for him. But that gas tank's such a big question mark. So if they get into a firefight, you saw it with Ed Herman. Ed Herman's a lot different than Dolidze, where Ed Herman at this point in his career knows what he's about. He's going to go in there and pepper you hard. He can still hit hard, but he'll go in and pepper.
Take a shot,
in and out, in and out. He can take a shot, like you said. Look at the fight against, oh boy, Jean Vellante. He lost that fight.
He didn't, though.
But he won that fight. So if we look at all the parts and pieces, Roman Dolidze, even with the time off, I think it helps him. If we look over on Tapology to get kind of a read of what the fans are thinking, out of 367 votes, 86% going with Dolidze, 80% saying he's going to win by knockout. Odds makers have Dolidze about a minus 185 favorite. I'm going to side with Dolidze. I wonder if the length of time that he's been off will kind of hinder him a little bit. Honestly, I don't think that it will. I think he's going to go out there, and realistically, it's going to be a finish for him. Whether it's by knockout or by submission, I wouldn't be surprised either way. You always worry about a sambo guy if he can get out of some of those difficult positions where you've got a guy that has such a big background in strict jiu-jitsu. But I think that Dolidze is going to be able to pull out the win here.
I agree. Dolidze does. All he has to do is outlast Ibragimov. If he can get through that sort of danger, if he can get through the danger zone that Kenny Loggins famously saying about, he'll just be able to kind of tee off with his power shots. Because Ed Herman, he's going to bring the volume. He's going to bring, just that grittiness that we know Ed Herman for. But his shots don't have a crazy amount of pop behind them. If you get tired, he's going to keep on hit. Really just throw a lot of volume at you. Dolidze, though, if you get tired and if he starts landing bombs, you're going to go down eventually. So I agree. I think he'll be able to get the done.
One other thing for Dolidze, if you're a big fan of the old jiu-jitsu, he used to wear a t-shirt that said, "I'm coming for your legs," which was a reference to his first 2 pro wins that he won in under a minute, and both of them by heel hook. So keep that in your back pocket. That's a party trick. Tell your friends all about it. The time that Roman Dolidze made his UFC debut. I'm really looking forward to this, both going with the Georgian fighter and Roman Dolidze. You're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions for the card, including an extended look at Devison Figueiredo, Joseph Benavidez, number 2. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.